And good evening, public and viewers. Today is Tuesday, September 10th, 2024. Welcome to the Equity and Student Achievement Committee of the Whole. This evening, we're going to jump right in and call the meeting to order. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge our decorum and would like to just read a statement of reminder to us as board commissioners that the board expects district officials and the public to conduct themselves and speak in a respectful and courteous manner, that is inclusive to us, so as to model proper civility and decorum for students. Shouting, personal insults, vulgarity, profanity, attacks, revealing information prohibited by law, or any conduct that disrupts the flow of business is considered to be out of order. The board may, among any other steps available pursuant to law, take the following actions during the meeting to maintain a fair and efficient meeting. Interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when the statement exceeds allotted time, is personally directed, abrasive, obscene, or irrelevant. Request any individual to leave the meeting when that individual, whether in person or virtually, does not observe reasonable decorum or the conduct interferes with the orderly progress of the meeting. And finally, call for a recess or any adjournment to another time when the lack of public decorum so interferes with the orderly conduct of the meeting as to warrant such action. At some point, that will not be something we will need to address. At this time, we do not have speakers on the list, and I would ask that we move to entertain a motion to accept the minutes from the June 11th, 2024 ESA Committee of the Whole.
So moved. Motion.
Okay. Moved by Commissioner Malloy and seconded by Commissioner Griffin. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and prior to us going into our discussion items for the evening, I'd like to entertain a motion to enter into an executive session to discuss matters of concern with the General Counsel.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy,
Yes.
by Commissioner Patterson.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're going to move into executive session, and for our viewing public, we will be back to finish out the meeting. Thank you. Thank you for your patience and welcome back to the Equity and Student Achievement Committee of the Whole with the Rochester City School District. We are going to move into the discussion topics of the meeting. Before we do that, I just want to make sure that I bring to the attention of the viewing public that at the top of the board docs, you will see the ESA Committee of the Whole meeting. There's an item that does outline our board goals. I did miss that part at the opening of the meeting. So if you would like to remind yourself of our board goals, it's up, so I might as well read it, right? We have 4 key goals, and one being to increase the percentage of students in grades 3 through 8 who are proficient in the New York State ELA assessment. We have Board 2, which is all students reading by 3rd grade. Goal 3, increase the percentage of students in grades 3 through 8 who are proficient in the New York State math assessment. And we have the metrics there for you to look at. And Board Goal 4, increase the number of students earning 5 or more credits in the 9th grade. And so take a look at those to keep yourself in tune with what we are measuring. Moving into the discussion topics, I'm going to turn the mic over to Interim Superintendent Strickland, who will go over the 2023-24 year-end data, Part 2.
Thank you, Chairwoman Simmons. Good evening, President Elliott, Vice President LeBron, Board Commissioners, members of the viewing public, students, and staff. My name is Demario Strickland. I am the Interim Superintendent of Schools, and I am here to present our second round of year-end data. First, I want to consistently bring the viewing public a reminder what our new vision and mission of the Rochester City School District is. And our vision is now activating dreams and unlocking potential. And the mission of our district is we cultivate a culture of academic excellence for all and a community of empathy, equity, and accountability that empowers students to succeed beyond graduation. As mentioned from Chairwoman Simmons, our 2023 to 2028 board goals are as follows. We have our number 1, 2, and 3. We want to increase percentages of students in 3 through 8 on our state assessments. And number 4, which is what this presentation will focus on, is increasing the number of students earning 5 or more credits in 9th grade from 70% in September 2023 to 90% in June 2028. Today's presentation, I will be covering the following: the current graduation requirements and level setting, cohort 2024 with 5 or more credits to review, strategies for the 2024-25 school year, cohort 2020 and their graduation rate, barriers to those graduation rate percentages, and then finally, what our strategies will be moving forward. In front of you are the current number of credits that are needed minimally for students to graduate from New York State schools. Students are needing 4 credits in English, 4 credits in social studies, 3 in science, 3 in math, world language credit, visual art, music, dance, or theater credit. We have to have 2 full credits of physical education. Health is a half credit, and a total of 3.5 electives. However, I just want to remind everyone again, 22 is the minimum, and there are many students in our district that actually exceed those minimums. The Regents' requirements: all students need to receive, all students that are non-NYSA must partake in the Regents program through New York State. You have to have a Regents examination in ELA, math, science, and social studies, keeping in mind that ELA is a tricky subject because there is only one Regents exam that is provided, and that is generally English 3. There are also plus pathways, which can simply be classes, or it could be work-based learning hours, or CTE credentials, in which performance reviews are done with our students. You can also have a world language credential, one in humanities, which you would take an additional social studies class and pass the Regents exam, and same thing with science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, where you would have an additional Regents exam. In front of you now for the 2023 cohort breakdown of credits earned by schools, we see that currently the number of students that have over 5 credits are a total of, 66.8%. That means that those students we are falling short of the current goal of being above 70, and we actually have an interim goal that is around, I believe, 74%. So there is a lot of makeup work to do in that regard. I am going to be talking about some of the things that we are going to have to do to target our students in the 2023 cohort. Even though we are not quite at that goal as of yet, there are still opportunities for students to acquire credits. And just again, to level set, the way you get a credit is by passing the course, okay? So just to be clear again, students that earn 65 or greater will earn 1 credit or half credit per course if they are successful in that regard. We have about 33.1 student, well, that is the percentage, excuse me, or 549 of our 1661 that are falling short of the 4.9 credits. Again, the subsequent slides will talk about some of the things that we intend on doing to reach those students so that they do not fall behind. This is another chart just showing holistically per school, God bless you, holistically per school on where each school actually fell. As you can see, this is from the last school year. We do have schools that are no longer on there. They were merged actually into Padilla, and particularly our Northeast students that have joined that campus. They have been sort of spread out into the schools that they currently are at. So their data is actually in their new schools information. We target this as a yellow. We are making progress. And we say it's yellow because of the fact that there are things that administrators are going to be doing on weekends, possibly at night, in which they're engaging in credit recovery for our students to get those opportunities to make up credit. Again, 66.9 is not the mark. However, it is where we are, and we are going to acknowledge that, and we need to continue to work on behalf of our students to get students to 5 or more credits. Sorry, Tom. Here are some of the school supports that I was discussing. These would be what we would say are the inputs. We are beginning tracking in middle school. Okay, that's going to be very important as students in middle school are actually taking advanced classes, often in algebra and in living environment. You may know that we had 3 individuals last year that were successful on their algebra state assessments in elementary buildings at school number 23. Those students probably will be on track for algebra 2 by the time they get to 9th grade. So they are hopefully going to have multiple credits, entering their high school year. Our middle schools are offering advisory periods such as crew. There are some other high schools that actually are offering that small group time as well to talk with students, to update on progress, such as World of Inquiry, school number 58. We also have East High School that has an advisory time, and that's students having positive opportunities to interact with staff and really keep up with credits, and also build further positive relationships. We are going to be sending out progress reports so students and families are aware of where they currently stand. Again, 65% is where students need to be. We are really pushing for our parents to be signed up with Parent Portal. that is where they get the opportunity to actually see their child's grades in real time. And that actually will be the biggest indicator, or will support knowing where our students are at all times. We also have marking period recovery. So if a student gets a 60% in class, we have our IM&T staff, virtual academy staff, that has truncated our OCR, which is online credit recovery courses, to actually help students make up the work that have happened in that marking period so that they can earn a passing grade and not go throughout the year with just consistent failure in each marking period. We have study skills classes and AVID. That's a special course. One is at East, one is at Rochester Early College. And again, that is an opportunity to enhance the skills of our students so that they are successful with study habits, just answering questions appropriately, just skills that are gonna help them be successful in our schools. Extended day programming, in particular, our schools that are of CSI status have those extra or additional funds to provide support for students that may need extra time to just get it done. And that includes also Saturday programming. Our cohort tracking is already has begun. Our ninth graders are entered into the high school systems. We do have Freshman Academy, which is a strategy in which we take a dedicated space within our school communities. We assigned a school counselor, social worker, a dedicated staff that just generally teaches the ninth grade. They familiarize themselves with each and every student. They make sure that they communicate with each other before they call home to parents, and it really is a wraparound support during the school day and after for our students. And those are actually at East High, Edison, Padilla, and Wilson Magnet. Now, Padilla is one of our brand new high schools. Their ninth grade academy is situated on the 3rd floor, and I have walked those halls twice now. And I definitely want to give a shout out to what I've been seeing on that floor at Padilla for the past few days. We have summer bridge programs. Our middle school, and I keep saying middle school because we have to get them early to get our students acclimated with study skills, get them acclimated with their schools, to lay the groundwork and a foundation for success. But it also happens at some of our high schools as well. And then finally, last but not least, we have our Acceleration Academy, which took place at St. John Fisher, in which students have the opportunity to partake in elective courses and earn up to 1.5 credits. And you will get those data in a later presentation around summer school and what came about. We were also able to break down these data by males, females, and non-binary status. And this will allow our school leaders, our teachers, to really provide targeted interventions if necessary at specific schools that are gender-based. And it's just, again, good to see who's sort of who's excelling and why, and then also who's not, and what are those possible root causes and the percentages that are about. I will once again reiterate for the public, there is information regarding Northeast College Prep and Franklin High School. These are moving into graduation rates. I'm going a little fast, my apologies. These are the preliminary graduation rates from August. And as you see right now, and these data need to be certified, we are at 62.5%. Now, the state does look at 4th, 5th, and 6th-year plans because students many times take those 5 years, 6 years to actually get to the 22 credits. So these are the data that are in front of you. Next. And we have then, preliminary August graduation rates, not by gender, but by subgroups and by gender, because we, again, want to really have a targeted approach around our Black and brown males. If you recall, our academic plan does say what is a viable plan that we're going to have to target our Black and brown males in our schools, and we want to be sure that we are able to provide additional supports and services and put those data out front and center so that we are telling the public, yes, we will be targeting those population in particular, as well as our students with disabilities and our English language learners. Those are definite musts. I do want to put out there, see a decrease in our English language learners. I actually met with each and every single high school principal at the end of the year. There are a multitude of reasons around those dips in percentages. Portions are because of the fact that actually students we did gain a lot of students from that were asylum seekers, that were Ls. Often these students have more than 22 credits. However, difficulties in taking the English 3 exam, and we have been talking with and asking for support from the Office of Bilingual Education and World Languages and at the New York State Education Department to really figure out what is the common ground, because no longer in America do you need to just be able to speak English and survive. We have Spanish-speaking families that are doing just fine, but we're really looking at what else can be put in place. Hopefully, through the Blue Ribbon Commission, we will be able to have some tasks be performance-based, and that will give our students additional opportunities other than a test to actually be successful. Here are the bar graphs of the same thing in terms of our 2019 cohort and our preliminary 2020 cohort. I want to also mention, not that this is an excuse, because we've learned about that in student outcomes focused governance. However, 2020 were the COVID babies. Those were the individual students that came into our system during COVID. And I would like to also mention, if they did not receive special appeals or exemptions by senior year, meaning they've come back from charter school, they've moved into our city, then they did not have the opportunity to gain special appeals or exemptions like the 2019 cohort. What I do also want to mention is that in the 2019 cohort, while the percentage is higher, many of those students were successful because of the fact that they actually had exemptions and special appeals. Whereas the 2020 cohort, there's going to be less of that, and even though our percentage is lower, many of those students actually did earn passing grades on Regents exams in order to be successful. So I just, again, want to put out those misnomers that could be out there. Yes, it decreased. However, the staff is working extremely hard and diligent to make sure that we reacclimate our students into what it is to be successful in schools, passing our Regents exams so that we are successful in getting our students across the finish line. Things that we are doing for students to analyze student progress towards graduation. Graduation plans are, in fact, in PowerSchool, and that's why we want to consistently push Parent Portal. Families have right at their fingertips, if they have a smartphone, you can pull up students' grade in real time and see how children are doing in school as of now. We also have a graduation plan, which in slide, one of the previous slides, and that would be, slide number 6. It tells you what items are needed for students to be successful. That actually is a platform right in PowerSchool for students. We are doing cohort reviews with principals, counselors all the time. And I already saw a line at World of Inquiry on one of my visits where a school counselor already has begun meeting with our students to determine if, one, they had the right schedule with the right courses, and two, let them know how many credits they actually have. And now here's the additional piece. I will be also maintaining or looking at their cohort trackers as well and determining where their progress is, or where needed supports are for our schools. Again, evening and Saturday interventions, online credit recovery, a lot of these things are similar. We do have our central office administrators, that includes teaching and learning, our school chiefs that are visiting and providing support to schools 3 days per week. School counselors and administrators are ensuring that cohort trackers are accurate with Power School. Reminder, Power School is what feeds the information to the New York State system, not the cohort trackers in the Google form. That is a definite thing that I wanted to put out there, because the principals and school leaders definitely know I've been bringing that up with them. We're looking at our graduation commitment that is embedded in our school improvement plans, which all students must have. Leveraging our community partners. We're providing internships and work-based opportunities, in particular with schools with heavy CTE presence, i.e. Edison, Career and Technology School, as well as East High School. And then we are also engaging with Principal Ramirez at All City High, which he offers an alternative program to support students that may need something that's not as traditional. And finally, some of the strategies that were taking place in 2024 for this 2024-25 school year. There are a total of 4 school chiefs now. There are 2 that are solely focused on elementary education, and then there are 2 that are focused on secondary, our middle and high schools. There will be quarterly meetings with the school leaders to address barriers. As I stated earlier, I've already met with the school leaders in August or July to discuss with them their graduation rates and items and things that are needed to further support schools. The superintendent is tracking those data. So even though graduation rate is not a board goal, it is the ultimate goal. And with the superintendent having a laser-like focus on that, I'm going to be asking questions and I demand answers. There's a non-negotiable. So commissioners, anytime you happen to visit a school campus, in particular a middle or a high school, I would like you to pull students aside and ask them how many credits they have. It is important for all students to know what amount of credits they have and know what the goal is. The goal is 22. We have a math lab to help support students in passing Algebra 1. Algebra 1 is a barrier for students to graduation. Students spend multiple years at times trying to pass algebra, and we now have a math lab which helps support what they need to know in algebra. There are tutoring supports for our English language learners in English 3. All staff members must know the graduation requirements as well. I've already started, again, going into all the high school campuses, seeing posters of how many credits they need to graduate, as well as all the different Regents pathways. Schools are going to begin re-implementing, and this happened prior to COVID, Regents exam prep. And then finally, I already said it, graduation requirements are posted throughout the school and classrooms. And finally, our last slide, opened up the school year. It was an extremely positive opening, and I want to end with, declaring to the public, this will be the year of unprecedented growth by any means necessary. And with that is the end of my presentation.
Okay,
I'll
by
take
any
your
means
questions.
necessary. Thank you, Superintendent. I'm feeling energized and
Yes.
charged up. Thank you for your presentation. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open the dais for questions or remarks from commissioners. I'm going to start at my far right, and I'll start with Commissioner Patterson if you have a question.
Thank you. It's for the superintendent. I took some notes while you were talking. Actually, I took them earlier today, but
Sure.
just kind of followed up on cohort data. So some of the notes I put down here, it's an absolute fact that members, correction, it's an absolute fact that numbers submitted to New York State and our internal data does not align often. So my question is relative to the data that we have here, even though I'm aware that like data that's compiled at the school by the principal, that she validates that. But when it gets to your office or the administrative team, what the data that we have here today, even though, again, I know there's data that's submitted to New York State and there's an internal report or internal data. The data that we're seeing today, is that internal data or is that the data that we can look on the state report and see that same identical data there?
So, fantastic question. Thank you for that. These data that you actually see are actually submitted to the New York State Education Department. As I made mention earlier, our schools love their Google cohort trackers. When I pulled in my school leaders at our July or August meeting, and I do have the date, this summer was a whirlwind. I gave them the information that was compiled by the actual New York State system report. And immediately some of the school leaders looked and they said, that doesn't look right, or numbers might be off by 1 or 2. It's not necessarily, multiple. But I said, if they're off, then you need to look at your cohort tracker and make sure that it is accurate in PowerSchool. PowerSchool is the source that feeds into the New York State SIRS system, which is the Student Information Repository System, and that is where our internal team pulls these data. So these data are what New York State actually has from us as of right now.
Yeah, thank you very much for that response. And I think it's very important that when it comes to grade level programming and especially attendance, that we make sure that if, the student is there, they're there. But if they aren't, we should make sure we document that accordingly.
Yes,
Thank you.
sir. No problem.
Commissioner Santiago.
Yeah, very quickly, while looking at the data here, one thing that I definitely noticed was our English language learners are usually, at the lowest percentage. And of course, with the work that it takes on the district end and the level of learning that it takes on the student end, I'm sure that can be pretty challenging, certainly for somebody who may have instability in their household. But I just wanted to quickly ask you, what are we doing as far as, supports towards our ELL students? I know that we've gotten some presentations on this, but, if there's been any new information that you've learned regarding this.
I'm sorry to
and,
interrupt
plans
you,
to move
Commissioner.
forward.
Are you referring to slide 12?
Yep.
Yellow.
This one.
Yeah, it's on slide 12 also.
Yes, if we can just make sure the viewing public is looking at slide 12 also, so that
Yes.
as the question is being discussed, they have reference as well. Thank you. Pardon my interruption.
Oh, so there's a few things. As I described earlier, this isn't representative. This isn't a positive representation of their intelligence. We need to make sure that is out there. Often, many of our students from different countries that are speaking different languages come to us with 28, 29, 30 credits. However, the English 3 exam remains a barrier. So one of the supports that we try to put in place, I know our director of transition systems, once she gets a student that is an English language learner, she and they know that English 3 needs to be taken because every student must take that, she already connects them with English tutoring services to support them. Now, generally, students have a difficult time sometimes within the 4 years to actually get there. First of all, you need English 1, English 2, and then English 3. That's when you begin to take the Regents, which is your typical junior year. Some of those students need multiple attempts to take that exam as they're receiving those tutoring services, and they may graduate year 5 and some even year 6.
Yeah.
So we are doing the individualized tutoring. We also have to really have our mindsets open that we are servicing all students, students with disabilities, English language learners. The students that show up at our doorstep are the students that we must serve. We must find, by any means necessary, the tools that are going to be needed to get those students across the finish line. We have ESO supports, our teachers that are English as a new language teachers in schools, and we will actually be making a more concerted effort to determine if more support is needed. We, as the Equity and Student Achievement Committee, wanted to bring you the English language learner presentation earlier in the year rather than in June, so that if we have more students that are coming into our community, we want to be sure that we deploy supports accordingly or appropriately. And I wanted to get you those data right up front so that we can be proactive and not reactive.
And so ELL students are required to take the Regents exam in English?
That is correct.
Okay, and I'd love to look further into that because, certainly as we're looking at our migrant population coming in, it's kind of challenging, for you to come in and be slapped in the face with an exam with a language that you have no idea about. And so even when we're speaking about our legislative agenda, I'd love for us to see, what's a possible conversation around that. And lastly, I just want to say with the high schools, with the lower graduation rates, and the different populations with the lower graduation rates, I'm hoping to see in this upcoming budget, some support and the budget to be reflective to the support to get their graduation up to a better standard. And so, other than that, I appreciate the presentation and the truth in the presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago, and some of that advocacy that Commissioner Santiago referenced is conversations you expressed you're having with the Blue Ribbon Commission currently, right?
Yes,
Okay.
just give the viewing public background. The Blue Ribbon Commission are a set of new criterion that the Commissioner of Education, who was here last week, and we thank her for her visit, has put forth with the Board of Regents to really give a new look to the somewhat outdated graduation requirements. And again, we want to, a lot of our students in this district that we serve are hands-on, and they should have the opportunity to work with their hands or show that they have other skills than just taking an assessment that's pen and paper or computer based. We should give them opportunities to have performance-based measures as well, because often our students are extremely successful in those regards.
Absolutely, thank you. President Elliott, did you have any questions or comments? No, not at this time. And Vice President LeBron?
Yes, I just had a question, and I do want to go to the slide because it had to do with the tracking. So I believe it's slide 9 on the school support.
Yes.
Because I know that we're going to start, and let me just say kudos to the administration on tracking middle school, right at middle school.
Yes.
Right from the jump, so I'm very excited about that. But I just wanted to find out if East, Soda, and School 58 are also included in that tracking, because I know that they don't have, they're not new middle schools, they are middle schools that existed, but just wondering if those options are available to parents as well. Thank you.
Fantastic question, Vice President. Thank you. As I stated earlier, we have 2 secondary chiefs. One has all the middle schools, and one has the high schools. My expectation is that, one, all the chiefs are working together to really make sure they're on the same page, and make sure that schools like World of Inquiry, Soda, East are not left out of the fold. We've also brought Superintendent Blocker into our executive cabinet meetings, so she is hearing the vision and the thoughts that I have around this information firsthand, and some of these practices she's already been engaged in. So we are definitely not missing a beat in that regard. And again, the middle school tracking came about, and just want to be clear, not tracking in as far as, these are the students that are in this track. We are looking at tracking in terms of how many credits they have and possible needs for interventions just for the public. But we are making sure that we are intentional with looking at students that may need early intervention as early as middle school, so that we don't have a high school problem down the line. Yes.
Thank you, Vice President LeBron. Commissioner Malloy?
Thank you so much. I really like all the questions so far. I do have a couple questions that I'll put onto the question log because
Sure.
I'm still trying, they're still kind of nebulous at this point.
Absolutely.
And I'll have those a little bit later. One is just regarding maybe data at some point linking some of these interventions with some of the associated costs, just for future budgeting, so that are in alignment in the future as we get into that. So I haven't really materialized that question yet, but I'll put that on the question log. I really loved this presentation and the clarification that you provided on not only the region's requirements, but the +1 pathways
Absolutely.
as well. I think there has been in the past a lot of misrepresentation
Yes.
in the community, and so to have you go over that is very helpful to dispel
Yes.
that type of rumor in the community. But I am very much looking forward to updates on progress monitoring.
Yes.
And in particular, how this all aligns with the student outcomes-based governance
Absolutely.
moving forward. So thank you so much for your presentation.
No problem. And just an FYI, I've already begun looking at what possible markers we can use for the interim goals, and it most likely will be the marking period data for 5 or more credits. That will be the best indicator of how we determine if we are going to meet board goal number 4 as we continue to move down the line and jump in and provide interventions for schools or support for schools if necessary. And also don't want to go with the deficit model, but highlight the schools that are meeting the mark and figuring out what can we do to continue to replicate those best practices, because there are in fact schools that are monitoring this very well.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Malloy. Commissioner Griffin.
Hello, thank you. My question really centers around the regions and increasing our graduation numbers. It's concerning to me that, and I know that you at this level cannot do anything, it's basically at the regions level, but my concern is that a lot of the students have a lot of credits and they have completed the courses, but yet they are not able to pass the Regents exams. And this is concerning because we have students that are able to want to go out into the workforce or are working in the workforce, and they have this one class or this 2 classes that they can't pass the Regents exam on. The Regents exams are not good, or Regents diploma per se is not good out of New York State. Okay, it doesn't do anything for you. I myself was a Regents student and decided after having 2 classes of science and the 3 classes of math, I didn't want to be a Regents student anymore. I think it would be advantageous for us to more so look at trying to go to the Board of Regents and taking that Regents qualification away and making sure our kids can go to graduate and not have them go into school year after year just to take an exam. I think we are doing them an injustice, and we are also affecting their social and emotional skills and their anxiety levels trying to take an exam 4 or 5 times when we're out in the workforce and they're 24 years old trying to take an exam. It's just not doable for me. I think that as I sit here, I mean, I know how I am taking an exam. I cannot imagine taking a class and passing it the whole year and then coming back and taking that exam and failing it by 1 point and failing that course. So if we want our graduation rates to go up, we need to be forthright in getting that legislation passed at the Regents level, the Board of Regents level, so that we can have our children be successful and they can go on to do what they like to do with their hands, if it's an apprenticeship, if it's a mason, if it's a plumber, or what have you. I think we are doing a grave injustice with the process with this Regents exams, and I think it needs to be addressed immediately, and I think we will see a big change, and I think we'll see a big difference with our children and our youth in this society. This is definitely affecting them at a very high and alarming rate, and it's really, really bad. So I think that for me, that's another number one thing that we should address.
Can I quickly respond to that?
I would love for you to put that into context.
Yes. Just to quickly respond to you, as I stated before, we fortunately have a Commissioner of Education and a Board of Regents that is very in tune to what is happening in regards to Regents, how these disproportionately affect Black and brown children from getting across the finish line. We do know that there are test anxieties that are associated with our kids taking these examinations. And we also know that, it's just, there's other ways to measure success. And that's why they have put out the Blue Ribbon Commission requirements, which are looking at alternative pathways to say, you know what, job well done, and you can graduate. We do have 2 individual staff members within our district that are actually holding sessions for teachers to actually give their input and advice. They are also tasked with bringing that information to our parent organizations as well. And they are going to be bringing that information, analyzing it, and that will be the submission for the Rochester City School District to actually provide to our Board of Regents and our Commissioner of Education, Dr. Rosa, to tell her that we are informed and this is what we are in favor of. And I will be sure to get that information to you all.
Yes.
I guess, I'm sorry. I know that you spoke about the blue ribbon. What I'm saying basically is, I should say, rather, it should be a choice of that students, not something that is mandated, is more what I was saying.
That's what the
Okay.
intent is.
All right.
Some people will
At
take.
this time, I'm going to, thank you so much, guys. Yes, and what I will implore everyone to do, if you have not done it already, you can do a quick Google search, which will take you to the New York State Education Department, and it gives the graduation measures. There is a component that is specific to the Blue Ribbon. Just matter of fact, Google Blue Ribbon Commission, and it'll give you an outline. It gives you a Q&A, and it talks about all of the work that is going into that, and even a nice breakdown as to the Parent Advisory Committee involved, Student Advisory Committee, and that's a quick Google search away that'll also give some context to the conversation we're having this evening. Great questions, great concerns, and thank you for answering those. I will say, Commissioner Santiago, I did see, I'm gonna grab you 1 second. Just a couple of thoughts. I'm not trying to go into the weeds. I do want to make a quick statement that when you talked about the graduate, using marking period data to track for graduation, how students are progressing. I remember at one point serving with an organization that tried to support and help students, academically, and one of the things that I found to not work well is that sometimes I got the report card data well into the next marking period, and so that proactive opportunity to advocate and work with that student was difficult. So just putting that out there, but that's a sidebar.
We've definitely developed measures already in that regard.
Okay.
So the best thing is starting to socialize with our staff when data is needed, and that means that our accountability department will be doing a follow-up. Our executive director of accountability, Dr. Orden, already have given the dates that report cards need to be mailed home because we have to bring those data to this board because it is attached to our board goals.
Awesome, thank you. And before we go into our next piece, I want to give the mic to Commissioner Santiago, and then we'll close out.
Yeah, very quickly, I just want to just say regarding the whole Blue Ribbon Commission, I'm excited to see the work roll out and see how it'll work in our district. I'm seeing that there's different options between CTE and things like that. I was actually part of the student advisory board when it first started, and so I'm excited to see the work actually coming true. I was on the meetings, and it's good to see what the students were saying in those conversations is actually being put on paper. So I'm excited in the future to see where it'll go in this district and where it'll go in the state.
Awesome, thank you so much. And so at this point in time, we are going to move forward into the restorative hub, healing, understanding, and belonging. And this is going to focus on the outcomes in connection to the restorative hub. And this will be presented by Deputy Turner.
Thank you. Good evening. Greetings, President Elliott, Vice President LeBron, Chairperson Simmons, distinguished board commissioners, Superintendent Dr. Strickland, and the greater Rochester community. I'm so honored to be here with you today to share our Hub Initiative 23-24 end of the year data with you. Again, we want to make sure that we're very familiar with this. This is our mission and vision statement, and this directly connects with the work that we are doing at the Restorative Hub. Our process is rooted in equity of voice, building and teaching empathy, and high level of accountability when we are involved in the process of understanding that our words, deeds, and actions greatly impact our collective community. And also, this work supports priority 2 of our strategic plan. And also our team's, next slide please, our team's mission and vision for our Rock Restorative team is here to share with you. I really want to highlight that this initiative endeavor is greatly centered around providing space and opportunity to build and strengthen relationship and community. Also, our why. As I stated before, as nationwide, we saw some uptick in violence during and what we call post-COVID, and community violence was entering our schools, and schools were becoming greatly overwhelmed by the need for high-level mediations, which take a significant amount of time to coordinate and a high level of skill to be able to do them. So this initiative has been really helpful in helping our community and schools by allowing us to engage in this process with them. This is our hub timeline. I know you're familiar with it. Just a reminder, we began late September 2023, and we began unpacking the vision of this work. And in late October, we developed a referral process and scheduling to be able to provide this service. So oftentimes people say, what is the restorative hub? The restorative hub simply is an intentional space for building community, navigating conflict, and restoring relationships so we could actualize the beloved community. And we recognize that this requires a meaningful engagement and community partnership. In order to do this, as we always say, we are one community responding and servicing our community. So the restorative hub helps to break down barriers to support students and family needs in and out of school. And here is just showing our process for mediation and re-engagement from suspensions. We try to make it as easily as possible for anyone to access the referral, not just school officials, but students, community partners, parents. So there's multiple ways to be able to do that. We're really excited working with our Rochester Regional Transit Services about putting advertisements on the buses for community members to also access a referral to the hub. And it's really important that it's not just being able to participate in this solution-focused mediation, but we make sure that we follow within 2 weeks to check on all parties and see if there are any needs and to follow up with all participants. So the approach that we use is something called solution-focused approach to conflict resolution. And this really emphasizes the idea of instead of dwelling on the conflict, but we focus on solution-based restorative mediation. Solution-focused mediation is an approach to conflict resolution that centers on practical, future-oriented solutions rather than dwelling on the past or the cause of the conflict. We do this by emphasizing the strengths of all parties involved. Solution-focused mediation promotes what we call collective problem solving and helps individuals to move forward. This process is very different than what most folks are used to. This encourages what we call constructive dialogue, fosters an environment where parties can engage in positive and constructive dialogue rather than focusing on assigning blame or dissecting past issues. The mediator directs participants towards discussing possible and potential solutions. It is a belief that participants are capable of formulating their own goals and devising a solution to the conflict that they are engaged in. This process shifts the focus and helps to reduce attention and allows for more productive conversations. This is empowering for participants by allowing individuals in the conflict to draw on their strengths, resources, and past success. And by doing so, we find that participants feel more confident in their ability to resolve the issue and really take ownership of the outcomes. And this leads to a high level of satisfaction with the mediation process and also allows them to co-construct what those solutions look like, promoting a future-oriented mindset. And we've also found that this process helps to reduce emotional strain. Oftentimes, conflict can be really emotionally draining, even for young folks. And what we do is that, especially when the conversation revolves around past mistakes or grievance, But using a solution-focused mediation reduces the emotional strain by encouraging participants to focus on what they can do to move forward. Here are some data. So in 23-24, we were able to have a total of 202 mediations servicing 539 students. We had 589 family support, so that could be a caregiver, a parent, an auntie, anybody that is considered family support. Out of the 539 students that were serviced through our restorative hub, 32 of those students returned to the hub, however, not for the same conflict that they initially came to the hub for. Out of those students, 344 were females and 195 were males. And the next slide shows our elementary schools and the number of participants from each of our elementary schools that utilize the hub mediation services. And then the following shows our high schools that were able to use the hub mediation services. So school participation at the hub allows for proactive outreach when students are recommended for long-term suspension. So every student that is long-term suspended gets an opportunity to participate at the hub in order to help them resolve that issue that led to suspension, and then hopefully reduce their reduce conflicts for them so they can return back to school successfully. And oftentimes, those students who participated and used the hub services are often those students that are interested or we invite to be trained to facilitate restorative conversations and mediations in their own schools. And as we mentioned, we couldn't do this without our community partners. Here are some of our community partners that were engaged with us in 23-24. All of them are back to engage with us in 24-25, and some others have shown some interest in helping us to lift this work, and we are really looking forward to that. The other part of this initiative was the students getting banned from receiving bus services through RTS. And we really felt that we needed to address that. Some students lost their ridership privileges for the entire year, some of them for 6 months, depending on what the infraction was. So we really engaged in this really meaningful partnership with RTS to help address some of those concerns, and told them that any student that is banned from the bus, we invite them to go through the hub services, and oftentimes when they participate, their ban is lifted or the time is reduced so that they can have access to be able to get transportation to and from school. And here is the process for that, for the bus referrals when there's an incident that requires a student to be suspended from the bus. That triggers, as we get that notification, the process for us to contact all parties involved. Sometimes that includes bus drivers and students, or students to students, and then follow through with that process so that we can remedy what the issue was or the conflict, and they can get their bus privileges reinstated. What we're noticing that often the categories of what brings students to be banned from the bus includes fights, assault, or what they consider assault or harassment of drivers, or use of substance. And we have been able to, in 24-25, use some of the jewel money that we received from the vaping class action lawsuit to fund a social worker who can provide substance dependency counseling and psychoeducation for those students who have been referred specifically due to use of substance, and also get a substance dependence counselor in 2 of our large high schools. Next slide, please. So here is some data from that. Our reasons for suspensions, as I stated earlier, and this gives you how many of them involve that. And then the next slide is outcomes, which includes services that were accepted. Also, students who were able to have 3 or more sessions with Bill, who's an amazing partner doing this work. And also, something that's really important to see is how many percentage of those students had a 5 or more ACE score. And if we had time, we can do a whole session on this. This is really an indication of early exposure to trauma or adverse childhood experiences. The higher the number, the greater level of exposure to adverse childhood experiences, and 5 is a significant number. So we see a direct correlation often to adverse childhood experiences or trauma that is experienced by our students. So we worked with 450 bus drivers, trained them in de-escalation, and gave them an overview of the hub referral so that they're able to utilize some of those skills to de-escalate situations on the bus and not engage in that power struggle. Also, ongoing problem solving, working with our students. And let me tell you, oftentimes these trainings are done at 5:30 in the morning because that's the only time the bus drivers can do them. But it's been really, really meaningful for us to be able to do that. We also have weekly drop-in consultations with RTS headquarters, and we also meet as a leadership team every other month just to review the initiative and make sure that we're all on the same page. Next, we mentioned before that we have a mental health grant that has allowed us for the next 5 years to have 2 individuals, what we're calling our mobile mental health support, who are doctorate level clinicians, and they've been really helpful in helping and providing and helping families access mental health assessments and supports for their students and families involved, and to also do safety assessments and connection to support when needed, and really working schools to support them around Tier 3 student needs, especially those schools that do not have a mental health clinic in their schools. And also, we have a wonderful individual who is a certified conflict coach. We worked with her in the past, and what we realize is that sometimes there is a need for staff-to-staff conflict, and being employees of the system or being in the same union can get a little blurry, but staff was really asking for some support around that. So we've been able to engage Linda Bell, as I said, who's a conflict resolution coach, to be able to provide that, who's an external person and has done such an amazing job in helping. Last year, she worked in 10 schools, working with teaching teams, co-workers, and support for burnout, and has just done an amazing work with our staff who need to utilize those services. And some news that we have is that we're getting acclimated to our new home due to the expansion of our middle schools. We're no longer at our old place, but we are now at 15 Cold Star. And very shortly, in the next couple of months, there will be an invitation for an open house so that our community can come and see the new space and be able to engage in any Q&A with them. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much, Deputy Turner. I'm going to open the dais up for questions or comments at this time. I'm going to start to my far left. Why did I have to think about that? And Commissioner Malloy, I did see your hand. I'm going to start with Commissioner Griffin and move my way in.
Yes, hello, Deputy Turner. I was just looking at your, you got your mediations on page, is this page, what page is this? I don't know if it's a number here, actually. It's talking about the elementary embrace restorative practices through Hub. Slide 12. Is it slide 12? I don't see the number on here.
Yeah, the elementary schools that engaged.
Yeah, you got it on slide 13 as well. But I guess my concern is this data from, it says Franklin Lower and Franklin Upper. Is this recent data or?
23-24 school year.
23-24, okay. So with the increase at the schools and the changes because of reconfiguration, how does this work now? What are the the prospective numbers that you have as far as mediation? Because the numbers at Franklin have doubled. We have a change at Northwest. How are you figuring that as far as the mediations for the schools and the dynamics because of the dynamics changing?
Yes, so the process will be the same in 24-25 school year in terms of how to access the hub services. We've already, believe it or not, I know it's only been a couple of days, I don't even think, not a full week of school year, but we have 4 referrals already, and a lot of it's to be proactive. It might have been, something that carried on from one school to another and so forth. So we will provide the same level of support to those schools, although they may have more students. We're still accounted for. The total number of students in our district hasn't greatly increased, and we've also provided additional supports beyond the hub supports for those schools, recognizing that reconfiguration will have an impact as those communities really get to know each other and gel.
And my last question would be reference to how effective is the hub restorative program with the gangs that are involved in these schools? What are you doing to address those issues and the safety concerns with our staff and our children in the schools?
Yeah, very good question. Thank you. So a lot of our hub referrals are oftentimes our long-term suspended students are some of those students who have engaged in some of those conflicts. So everyone, we make sure there's no gatekeepers. Everyone gets contacted and has an opportunity for this. And beyond that, we've also met with our larger community partners a couple of weeks ago to plan around and to share some data, whether it's the Rochester Police Department, whether it's our Pathways to Peace. All folks involved were around the table to be proactive in planning for that. And a lot of those folks that provide the gang intervention and prevention services are on our team in terms of our community partners who have been trained and who provide the hub services for those students alongside us.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner Griffin. Commissioner Malloy?
Thank you. What a great presentation. It's so nice to see the hub expand, and I finally understand why there was a need to move to 15 CoStar Street. I would imagine that that's going to help us provide more social-emotional supports for more students district-wide. And so I recognize the importance of this and appreciate this, and I love this explanation. Quick question I have, and forgive my ignorance. I saw the hours for the hub, and are students physically going from their schools then to the hub to engage in all those services?
Yes. So some services are provided at the school. The feedback we received early on was the hub was considered neutral ground, right? It's not one person's school, it's not the other school, right? It's considered like this is a place and individuals, right, who are not necessarily part of my school community and who can be as objective as possible. So all those hub mediations are done now at CoStar, so they physically come there. Those hours were in our beginning process where we did not think they would be a great need, and we found now we're being super flexible. There's even times if we can even provide evening supports for individuals who want to engage, especially caregivers, but cannot. And now, thank God, modern technology, caregivers are able to join us via Teams or Zoom during their lunch break, step out, and do that. So we try to be as flexible as possible.
And so for when they do need to meet physically at CoStar Street, are we providing transportation to families or providing for those types of needs?
Yeah, so we don't per se provide the physical transportation. We provide bus passes. We have, in some instances, where we're able to provide like a Lyft or Uber, depending on a lot of times students come with a family, like we've not really had an issue. Oftentimes they'll come with a family member or a neighbor or other individuals like school personnel.
That's so great to hear, because we wouldn't want that to be a barrier. I think the last thing I just wanted to highlight or just give you kudos in your presentation for talking about the ability for that student empowerment piece, for these students to come back after benefiting from these services and then becoming coaches themselves. We really like to see when students are able to do that and then help their peers in their community. I do have other questions, but I'm going to put them on the question log just about budget alignment and moving forward, metrics, case management type questions. But Thank you so much for your presentation. I think this is a wonderful opportunity for our staff and students.
Yeah, I just wanted to say when Superintendent Dr. Strickland had the front cover of his presentation, those students were some students who went through the hub and who are now working with us and helping lead some of this work. So we have, when I say literally, probably close to 200 students who have engaged through that work, either because of school-based conflict or through the hub, who are now really interested in doing this work. And they were just about 7 of those students that you can see their picture in the front of his presentation.
It's just truly a targeted intervention and a success story, so thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner Malloy. I love what you brought out regarding RTS and their commitment to our students and partnering. That's true, form of community working together, because we do know transportation is a huge barrier, and so I love that commitment. And that 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:30, that's an even larger commitment. So I'm glad to see that's happening, and I hope that is something that will be able to continue and so on. I know you mentioned long-term suspension, because I know a lot of what we're trying not to do is have a boatload of students that are going into long-term suspension. I am not a champion for long-term suspension. However, from a sober perspective, I recognize that there are some infractions that might require that course. And so we do have that in place. And is that something the hub measures for as well? I know that you work with them going back into the school community and that type of thing. Do you also measure who's being long-term suspended? Okay.
Yes, yes. So this process, and I'm not saying that that's what you're saying, I just want to clarify for the public. This process is not in lieu of long-term suspension. This process is now giving opportunities to students who are long-term suspended to be able to have a process where they can resolve and process that conflict, because without that, what we're seeing is that these same students were being suspended, oftentimes for the same beef, right? The same individuals over and over. So this process allows, when they are assigned a long-term suspension, an opportunity to plan and coordinate that, oftentimes prior to their return, right, depending how long they've been long-term, if not immediately upon their return, so that we can try to squash and resolve the conflict, so it's not just happening over and over again.
Okay. Thank you. Vice President LeBron.
Thank you. A couple of things. I just want to give kudos to our bus drivers for doing a training at 5 a.m. and to the staff who trained them, so kudos to them for that. But I personally want to just actually shout out the hub, and I will continue to emphasize that I had to go through the hub with my own child. I won't give too many details because sometimes she watches these meetings, and so do other students from SOTA. So shout out to the kids from SOTA. But my daughter and I utilized this, and particularly for a situation she was having with another young lady who at times was really starting with my child, right? But I also want to uplift and ask for any parents who go through it to also give grace to the other parents, because sometimes we also don't know what other families are going through. And I just want to say, like, it took us three different times of physically going, right? The first time, the parents on the other side were not able to make it, and then it took us 2 sessions to get our kids on track together. My daughter has blossomed into a friendship with this young lady to the point where she is also looking out for her, right? Making sure she's not going and starting and doing this same sort of pattern with other children. And I just personally really appreciate that. And I know that none of this would have been possible without that extra outside sort of support, because I know that the school was trying internally, right, at that level to address it, but it really took taking them off-site more than one occasion to have these conversations. I was there, the other parents were there. And myself and the parent exchanging our phone numbers to say also, if it is my child, contact me directly and we can then mediate this. But I would not have even had the foresight to, how do I reach out to that parent if I don't even know who this student is? Because this is a new student to me, it's a new student to my child. They were both new at the school last year. So I've never seen that in all of my years in this district with my older 2 that went through similar issues or concerns over the time. And so an amazing, amazing resource to have. I hope that this board and future boards administration continue to support and fund and outgrow this hub, because it is effective. And just shout out to all of the staff that work in the hub and all of our partners. Thank you.
you, Vice President LeBron. President Elliott. No questions this evening. And then we have Commissioner Santiago.
I just want to very quickly just celebrate restorative practices being in the district and being how it is as in the restorative hub. As a student in this district, back when I was a high school student, I advocated hard for restorative practices, both in this district, on the New York State level, on the New York State education level. And so it's great to see, some of the advocacy that myself and a lot of other students joined together in making happen in the district. And it's great to hear, how successful is being rolled out and how you are working with many students, working with many parents, working with many families. And so, like Vice President LeBron said, I'm interested to see how this can grow even larger when it comes to the safety in our district and when it comes to how we're dealing with our conflicts in the district, which a lot of times is something that we all have to learn as adults, as human, on how to resolve conflicts that we deal with on a day-to-day basis. But I also want to quickly push out, and you are already tapping into this, but push out on youth peer advocates and youth peer workers. I would love to see that expanded more than just 4 to 7 or just through Rochester Works. It'll even be great to see in our district us paying students to be youth peer advocates and youth peer workers working on conflict resolutions with their peers. And when we do this, we create a system inside the district where the students can help the students. If we can get to a place where we're allowing our students to help students, we get to a place that we're actually able to effectively help our safety all together. And so I'd love to see that expanded. I'd love to see more youth workers, both paid through the district and Rochester Works, to allow our young people to help our young people, which is extremely effective, which is something that I've learned while being in this district and something that we see is successful across this country. And so great work, and I'd love to see the expansion of the hub and the expansion of our youth peer workers.
Thank you, Commissioner Santiago. Commissioner Patterson, do you have any questions or comments this evening?
Yeah, thank you. I have a question relative to the decrease in the number of suspensions that we normally discuss in executive session, but it's kind of sensitive, so I'm going to put it in maybe the question log, for you, rather than here. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Thank you, Deputy Turner, for your presentation this evening. We'll be following up more conversation around the hub and interested and excited to see what it does this year for students as we are under the reconfiguration and the different grade levels. Thank you. And so at this time, we have our General Auditor, Nissa Henry Wheeler, who will be presenting on our special education audit this evening. Try the mic again. I don't think so. Tom, does that sound good to you?
Okay, good evening. Is that better?
There you go, project.
Okay, we're there.
Ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. I won't belabor this or read slides to you, but I will provide an overview and highlights from our special education review. At a high level, the objective and background was really to evaluate the control environment as well as assess compliance. I did want to formally state that the RCSD is responsible for 6,200 approximately students with disabilities, and it doesn't just include students inside of RCSD schools, but also can include some charter schools, students in charters, et cetera. So I did want to make sure that was understood. Also wanted to share the Commissioner of Education Part 200 mandates all requirements for special education, and this audit was not intended to evaluate the consent decree, but instead operating processes and efficiencies in special education. We evaluated controls, policies, protocols, as well as compliance, and had data from 22-23 and 23-24. We do want to recognize that our special education department has the challenge of improving academic outcomes. They have lots of staff turnover. That is sometimes a challenge, numerous corrective actions that are necessary, as well as significant data reporting commands. Our audit issued 21 recommendations to update protocols and procedures, develop documentation standards, improve frontline system utilization, provide further training in some areas, and improve monitoring and compliance. The first recommendation surrounds protocols and procedures. We had some outdated items. There was considerable effort to compile and have online protocols and procedures, but there were concerns around how many people could access, edit, delete, et cetera, and wanted to ensure that we were really consistent about documentation storage, as we had difficulties on occasion locating documents across the district. So the two recommendations are to improve organization, version control, ensuring that all procedures that are available are readily available, accessible, and current, and make sure that we enforce compliance. In addition, looking at document storage and retention standards, ensuring compliance in those. Under frontline, there was utilization that was needed. We really wanted to see better utilization of the frontline education system. We at the district have a habit, we love Google, but when we spend money on a system, we really should have the system work for us as well as possible. So we really are looking for improved utilization there, as well as functionality expertise. There is a module that's service management. That is where we're putting our related services. We really want to make sure that our in-house expertise does exist. So we're looking as the recommendations to fully utilize frontline and ensure our needs are met by our vendor for the frontline and service management systems. Under the operating process, referrals are generally what's used when we are trying to, where families or teachers or even a doctor might suggest a student needs to be evaluated for specialized services. In this process, there's very strict time frames that are required to do this. We want to ensure they're date stamped, accurately entered. We have a clear workflow to ensure we're meeting the deadlines that are required. And so we're really looking for improved monitoring compliance in this area. The withdrawal process for those who decide initially they would like to have their student evaluated, but then later change their mind for reasons such as supports in the general education setting, et cetera. We want to make sure we're consistent about the process that we follow. And so we're really looking for better monitoring and tracking in the withdrawal process. Under evaluations, we did a great job making sure parent consent exists for evaluations. I think we got a little overzealous and started checking way more evaluations than necessary in a few cases. So we would find ourselves having things checked and approval from parents to review items that were not needed or performed when the student was assessed. We need to make sure also if something is planned and approved that we document why we didn't do it. We did find a couple of cases where there wasn't the required evaluations performed for student reviews. So the recommendation is really to ensure appropriate evaluations are performed, as well as approvals and compliance with the parent consent. Under final IEPs, my concern is just to ensure that we don't have the delays. We would have the final meeting, but there were significant delays with finalizing the IEP to start the student's new program. One of our challenges does happen in the process is ensuring we get parent approvals back in a timely manner, and we really need to put more effort towards getting that content back, because half of the parents in our sample did not receive or send back their agreement in more than 10 days. So we really are looking for timely finalization of IEPs. Under the placement process, we experienced delays. Once again, Mr. Google shows up with a Google Sheet as we went ahead and tried to operate our process and manage workflow. We really want to see how we can use our internal systems to manage things. In this case, we use Google for both the enrollment side as well as we're using Google for the seat tracker to identify what seats are available to place students. So it's really the intent and the assurance that we try to utilize our systems as much as possible and are timely about how placements take place. Under related services, that would be the specific services the student might need for support. We want to make sure they're beginning timely, that there's improved monitoring, bless you, and to make sure that if a provider is absent, that the services are made up. And so this is, we've issued recommendations in this area to ensure services are starting, we're monitoring that, and any missed session is truly documented and made up. Under record keeping and ratios, we did notice in service management, we don't track parent counseling and music therapy, not inside of that particular system. The other services are tracked there. We also have skilled nursing, which is something we do track, but it was not consistent in our sample. So we really want to encourage that to us to be a little bit more careful about tracking and recording. In addition, we have small group sessions that might be identified, and there were cases where there might not be a small group available for a student, but the challenge that happens is if you put in a small group on the IEP and then you issue, say, one-to-one services, well, you can't get reimbursement because they're not consistent with the IEP. So we really want to make sure that we look at that process and see if there's ways to ensure that we're aligning with IEPs. Under annual reviews and evaluations, this is a known challenge. We've been working on it as a district, but they're still not consistently completed within the scheduled due dates. It's important to improve monitoring compliance in this particular area. For transportation, I know I touched on some of these concerns in the transportation audit, but with more than half of all students with disabilities needing special bus transportation, and of that population, 91% requiring a house pickup, and of that population, 42% needing a small bus, we really are almost suggesting that a student with a disability must have a special transportation, and that's not necessarily true. So we want to ensure special transportation aligns with the disability of the student and make sure that one other item we did not consistently see is if a CPR certified attendant must be on the bus due to the student's need, we want to ensure that's documented in the IEP so that could be complied with. Under the manifestation determination, the district is working with the quality assessment team to deal with manifestation work. And it's just important that our questionnaires are completed, our documentation's complete, that we're timely, and we are using Google Sheet again to do some tracking in that particular area. So we really want to utilize our systems effectively and ensure compliance in that area. For behavior referrals, we found it was not consistent that teachers would document that they've removed a student from the classroom. And we want to make sure there's plenty of visibility to when a student's been removed from the class and instruction time is missed so that we can ensure the missed assignment and instruction does take place for those students who might have been put out of the classroom. So we've issued a recommendation in that area. For the continuum, which is where we identify what classes will roll to the next year. So if you might have a self-contained class that's in grade 3, and you might roll that in that school to a grade 4, so it's available for those students, that process where we do this work is manual, and we use Google. And so we're really looking to see, do we have systems that might be able to support us? We did notice errors when we were reviewing this process, and so what happens is there's multiple manual reconciliations to get it right. Great news, we do get it right, but the number of manual reconciliations necessary suggests that an automated process would probably be a lot better. So we issued a recommendation for that. Under multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS, we're looking at the number of interventions that need to be explored in a general education setting. So when we look at 23-24, there were 600 referrals in that period, and yet less than half actually resulted in student classification, which means we would have gone through testing, evaluation, this entire process, resources are utilized, and less than half of the referrals should have been there. Most of them should have been addressed in the school building. So we really are looking, and we are working with that department and having them provide additional training and support to make sure that if it's a general education issue, let's try to provide supports in a general education settings, because everyone who is struggling in some way does not mean they are a student with a disability. Under crisis prevention and intervention, we're really looking, I know there's plenty of social emotional things around at the district, and yet we really need this to take hold at the building level to ensure that our building leaders and our teachers are able to identify when students are in distress and seeing these warning signs and really doing interventions so that we don't get to a point where it's out of control and the students suspension or they act out or lash out. So we really are looking for some more work in that area to try to get everyone to embrace the fact that these are things that we can resolve before a problem takes place. My last item is about monitoring. Improved monitoring and oversight is needed to make sure that we're compliant as we need to be. One of the areas I spoke with Chief Swan about is the real need for quality data and tracking and reports and some of the things that are needed so that our monitoring can work more effectively so that we can actually comprehensively monitor and meet these expectations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. And so I'm going to open up the dais for, we're going to keep it to one question if we have one comment. One question or comment, so it's one and done, if that makes sense. I'm going to start again at the other line. I'm going to this line, this end of the dais with Commissioner Patterson. I'm telling you, around 8 o'clock, I start it's bedtime. Commissioner Patterson, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for, once again, for a thorough report. You're straight, you're direct, and you're not long-winded, and you're to the point, so thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Patterson, Commissioner Santiago.
I'm just wondering, when it comes to conflict management and crisis prevention, we're currently giving out trainings to our teachers regarding this? Am I correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay. That was my only question regarding that. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you. I think the challenge is, while there's training there, there's one thing to do a sit and get, but it's actually operationalizing the training that's happening and truly making a change so that we're positively affecting kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course that's the hope. These trainings are great, but how is this being operated in the classroom? And so hoping to see, plans regarding that.
President Elliott.
Thank you, Chairwoman. So I'll ask this to the interim superintendent with regard to the recommendations that the Auditor General has recommended. Where are we with those recommendations, and how soon can we ensure that what she is recommending, what she is recommending, you all in agreement with, and if so, how soon can we get those recommendations operationalized?
So the one thing I definitely know is that the minute, first of all, some of these were already being worked on through the special education department. The minute these reports drop, we are generally on it. It's a must, it's a mandate, goes with IDEA regulations that are federal level. It's a cross-functional thing that needs to take place. It takes place between myself, who supervises the academics, Deputy Turner, who supervises the operations and the social-emotional learning supports. So we are constantly in a place where we're going to be monitoring this just as well as we did with the graduation plan, getting it to this is the practice and not just also checking the box. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, President Elliott, Vice President LeBron. No, I'm sorry, I missed that. Thank you for the audit. I'm going to move over to the other end of the dais, and I'm going to ask for Commissioner Griffin, and then I'll bring it in towards the middle.
I'm all set. You're very thorough. I'm all good. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Griffin. Commissioner Malloy.
Yeah, thank you so much for this audit information. I found it eye-opening. Thank you especially for the protocols and procedures. I was surprised to see some of that, and I think there are many districts doing overhauls, similar overhauls. But thank you for the protocols and procedure, and then the final slide was just along how we monitor this system. So thank you again. I do have some other questions, but I will put those on the question log. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you again. Yeah, I may have some questions later on, but right now I do appreciate, the commitment to continuous improvement. Evaluation for process improvement is there, and you spelled out exactly what was identified in the audit and also some proactive measures that are being taken to address those pieces as we should with everything. So I do appreciate that. As other questions come to me, I will reach out for clarity if I need that. And if we are done with questions, and I'm going to thank you for your presentation this evening.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, we're going to actually need to vote on this in the business meeting. You're correct, President Elliott. Thank you for that. And so I am going to ask that we entertain a motion to forward the SPED audit into the September business meeting, and it was moved by President Elliott.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Santiago. All in favor? Aye. Aye. So the special education audit will be moved to the September business meeting for final approval, should we so move in that direction. We have a medley of reports
are listed here. And I'm going to just turn the conversation over to our district clerk, our district executive clerk, to clarify some of the reports that you may see posted on board docs.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. Good evening, Commissioners, Administration, and Community. So as you recall, in the August meeting, Commissioner Simmons, you shared the 24-25 work plan for ESA, which included monthly presentations as well as reports. So last month, there was a little bit of turnover, and so those additional items were added to this month's agenda. However, some of these reports were not able to be finalized. As you see, the special education report is in fact attached, and you all will have the opportunity to vote on that in the September business meeting. The other reports that are listed there will be provided in the board letter to you and then posted to board docs shortly thereafter. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. That's why those items are there, but there are no current attachments.
I do see these are a lot of reports that that are requested or required, whatever we've done. And so I know that moving forward, we probably want to identify which reports are truly going to be required. And the expectation would be that these reports would be provided in alignment with the committee work plan. The other thought process around it is I know we are also, or have been socializing amongst ourselves, an idea of a board diet or a committee diet. And so do we truly need all of these reports? I think we might want to take a look and make sure that we are getting the beef of what we need. So that's just another thing I wanted to put out there, not for discussion at this time, but just some thoughts I'm having, and making sure that what the reports that we're asking for are truly focused on student outcomes in alignment with the board goals and the governance piece, student-focused governance. So, yeah, those are some thoughts that I'd love us to chew on for a little while. And at this time, where are we going? Are we done with the meeting? We have a question by Commissioner Malloy.
So just, obviously, we're going to be discussing these various documents later on. We're making recommendations about these documents a little bit later. I just had a question regarding one of the documents, which is the Special Education Services Plan for 23 through 25. And how, I noticed when I was reading through it that the goals and metrics, obviously we hadn't approved our board goals at that time when this was first proposed. So I'm wondering if this is something we need, number one, and secondly, if this should be revised to be more reflective of the current goals. Because one of the goals on here is like improve the financial condition of our CSD. That was like back from like 2020 that we made that particular goal. So just to align all these documents with student outcomes-based government.
I think that's a really
governance.
good point, and so I do agree with you. If in this context, if we choose that is one of the reports that we're saying, yes, this is a mandatory report, we want to move forward with it. Once we determine that is one of the reports, we can then determine if this report needs to be revised. So the and I think would be good. Any other?
Oh, I just wanted to finish up.
Oh, we're done. I'm sorry.
No, that's all good. I just wanted to say I really appreciate that. When you mentioned committee diet, policy diet, with all recommendations of the Council for Great City Schools, student outcome-based governance training. And, as we look or move forward, considering whether or not something is truly going to work. I'm sorry, I'm so tired today. If whatever we're looking at is truly representative of what we need to accomplish those board goals. So thank you for bringing that up, the diet, which we'll be getting into in our training. I appreciate it.
Superintendent?
Hello? Okay. I also love the conversation, just to put it out there for the folks on this dais and the public. Often these reports are taking an insurmountable amount of time, which actually pulls me, my staff, away from the work. These are hindering the inputs that we need to also look at. It then in turn causes our outcomes to look the way they are. The more I can focus myself and our staff around that student achievement and performance, the more we are going to see positive student outcomes. I will say for the special education plan report, that is a 2-year report. And what we will have to do is have an addendum because we do have a new strategic plan, new goals, and we want to be sure that that information is socialized accordingly. But it is the plan ends in 2025.
Yeah, and I think that's a plan that needs to be actually approved so that it does become a concrete plan. And so I think that's the history behind it, that those pieces were missed. So we can take a look at that. I totally agree. And so it just gives us a sober approach as board members to once again reconsider some of the questions we have. And it's not that they're not good questions, they are viable, they're valuable, but are they allowing administration to focus on the work and the outcomes that we want? And I can so appreciate at this stage of my little life here that how difficult that probably is to dance between the lines all the time. So we're gonna get it right. And then we're gonna finish with you, Commissioner Patterson, because we're gonna get it right and we're gonna end the meeting before we go into our special meeting. Yes, we got another one.
Well, I do have a question relative
Yes.
to what you were just discussing.
Please,
so
please, yes.
I'll ask it offline. But,
No, you can ask your question and then we'll end after you.
I wasn't even clear what you guys were talking about when you,
Oh.
I think you mentioned something, it takes you away from the work of your staff. So I wasn't clear on that, what you guys were discussing.
Oh, I'm sorry. So what I had remarked on, and then I'll let the superintendent speak for himself. What I had remarked on is that on the, under the reports, we have a medley of reports that have been asked for over time. And I think under the learning curve, it was like, oh, let's see this, and we want to see this data and that data. And so for administration to actually take time to compile all of these other reports that we're asking for, some of the reports are maybe some pieces that we might ask time to time, but to ask for them to be regularly recurring reports is a substantial amount of time that it's not always aligned or focused on our outcomes, which we're trying to move towards. So the piece I'm trying to move towards are, do we even really need all of these reports? And so let's determine which ones we need, non-negotiables, and then move from there. But Superintendent?
I think ask and answered. We're good.
Okay, awesome. So I'm going to ask that we all finish this board meeting poll. We are done with this particular meeting, but what I want to make sure I do is let the public that is viewing know that we are moving into our special meeting. So to conclude this meeting, I'd like to entertain a motion to close the ESA Committee of the Whole meeting. Motion by Vice President LeBron, seconded by Commissioner Malloy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, this meeting is closed. Stay tuned for our special meeting in a moment.
Yeah, we will take about a 5-minute break so that people can just take a break, about 5 minutes or so. Good evening. We are continuing our meetings. This is the special meeting to convene for consideration of resolutions. I am Cynthia Elliott, President of the Rochester Board of Education, convening this special meeting. We will go to the agenda. There are no speakers or written comments for tonight's meeting. And I'm going to just see with my colleagues if we can bundle these resolutions, if everybody's okay with that.
I'm not.
What was that, Commissioner?
I want to, we may need to
We'll
go.
go into executive session.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, so this is in reference to resolution,
How you know which one it is?
yeah. Because I've been told what it is. Yeah, I read them, yeah, yeah. A motion for resolutions 207 through 210. We will go into executive session to discuss 211, then 212 through 217. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any questions or comments related to those resolutions aside from Resolution 211, which we will go into executive session on?
I guess my concern is, how would you know about the
You were interested in, Commissioner Griffin?
but I'm just asking, how would you know? I didn't speak
I'm
to
not
you
going to
about
discuss,
it.
that's okay.
Oh,
All
well
right.
then,
Yep.
okay, now I
Yep.
see what the conversation
Yep.
is. Okay.
All right.
Elliot, can I just say there have been a number of other commissioners in particularly interested in 211. So if she has not indicated that that's the resolution. If there's another one, this would be the time before we vote. If it is not 211 and there is another resolution that you want us to discuss in executive session, this would be the time to discuss it so we can pull it out of the vote and then just vote with it when we come out of executive session for 211.
So was there another resolution, but was it not 211?
And 212.
She's saying 212, so two resolutions. So can we redo the call to action then for the motions?
So just, yes, withdraw and then rephrase the resolution
Commissioner Malloy, can you
for,
witdraw?
to exclude
My
211 and
motion.
212.
I withdraw my motion.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
All right. So let me ask for the motion for resolutions 207 through 210, 211, and 212 will go into executive session. And then resolutions 213 through 217. Is there a motion for those?
Motion.
All right, there's a second. Any questions or comments related to resolutions 207 through 210, and then 213 through 217? Commissioner Malloy.
Yeah, and it's a question that I'd like to go on to the question log because I will be voting in favor of it this evening. But for 217, at some point, I would like to have a little bit more information about total costs involved on a yearly basis for this extension. I just wanted to get more financial information moving forward. I know that, yeah, I just need more information moving forward. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Lloyd. Any other questions or comments related to those resolutions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Everybody's no opposition? All right, thank you. And then we will, going down to discussion items, superintendent goals. We will be discussing, is this where are we discussing those now, Rahima?
Yes, ma'am. So the superintendent has put forward his draft goals in accordance with the state monitor's plan. The timeline states that you all have to have decided and put forward his evaluation calendar, including those goals by September 30th, 30 days after the school year begins, or October 10th. So this allows you all to meet that requirement. You were to have a discussion tonight around the goals, any recommendations or feedback, and then with the hopes of finalizing and voting in your September business meeting.
Thank you.
And if I could add one thing, I'm sorry. I did receive a question or two related to the format that was used, and so I just want to clarify that this was the format that was already posted on the board policies under Policy 3000, which is the superintendent goals. This was the exhibit, and so my recommendation was that he use the format that was already there.
Thank you. Commissioner Malloy?
Yeah, I think that this is a great board discussion for maybe future formatting of, I understand that this formatting is a little dated and is more reflective of, well, it's not reflective of the student outcomes-based governance progress monitoring and some of the recommended rubrics that they use. And I was wondering if we could have a discussion as a board about alignment at some point so that we can, I don't know the correct word, but memorialize this type of, so that we have a different format for,
Would the council, excuse me, would the Council of Great City Schools have a template of something for board goals? Do you know?
perhaps. I know
Okay.
they have many templates. I know some are, we're not as familiar with.
Because if we're talking about aligning them with, student outcomes,
Yeah.
I would imagine that they would have some, but I thought you may
Yeah.
know specifically. Okay, we can,
I liked the first set of goals are simply the academic goals that the board goals, but it was more, I had more of a concern about the other goals that were listed on the second page. And so, for instance, obviously, as a board, we still need to develop guardrails as a board, and then also, you're going to be developing your own interim goals as superintendent and presenting those to us, as well as interim guardrails, right? So some of this conversation might need to be based on those tasks as well. But when I was looking at some of the items here, I think, submitting a balanced budget to the Board of Education, that's New York State law, right? Like, I don't know if we need to make that a goal per se. I mean, that's just kind of the expectation that all superintendents have to do for their districts. And so maybe just rethink some of the goals that are listed here and have a board discussion on that.
all right.
I love that we're becoming more sophisticated because, I'm thinking, like, I love that you brought that out because I know under previous administration, we allowed for that. And so as we're learning, I guess we're doing it, but I just, we never made that rationale previously, It's
Yeah, and no
just-
shade on you, because I know you
Yeah.
didn't come up with these. This was archived.
I love that we're like evolving a little bit.
Vice President?
I just have to add, though, that we have had superintendents that did not present a budget that was balanced. We've had two in my time here, one that led us to the fiscal crisis that we faced, and another who tried to present a budget that wasn't technically balanced, per se, and took a lot of effort, including a Friday 8 a.m. meeting on Zoom to have conversations. So I just want to say, yes, that's obvious, it's the law, but we have had superintendents in the past not do that. So
Yeah.
I definitely, to Commissioner Malloy's point, think it's one of those, that should not be a goal because that's a requirement by law anyway. But there's definitely some pieces, budget-related, I think, that could be fleshed out there. But I want to be mindful that we stay within our own guardrails of what we're supposed to be doing, because even tonight, the way that the conversation has gone into some of the things is back to habits of being right up in the weeds. So just want to uplift that too.
Any other questions or comments relating to the superintendent's goals? So our next steps are, I'm going to refer to Rahima on this one.
So if there are any recommendations or feedbacks for changes to the goals, you all would want to have that discussion with superintendent and provide that to him so he can put forth a final draft for you all to be prepared to vote in your business meeting on the 26th.
Okay, so does that mean we need another meeting going into an executive session at some point before?
So there's a meeting next Tuesday where
Okay.
you all can have time to kind of maybe discuss that in executive session if you like.
And a quick clarification for the public too, like, these aren't the guardrails or interim goals or interim guardrails per our training. This is the state monitors, right? The state monitors timeline.
So, yeah, it's coming forward to align to the state monitor and academic plans requirements for when you all begin the process of evaluation. But every year, you're required to evaluate the superintendent.
Right, and then there's an entire schedule of progress monitoring along with specific rubrics that I hope that we can discuss with our coaches, and I know the coaches also work with superintendents as well on their own piece.
So that's something that we could talk about, because we need to have this approved by October 30th.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, we could talk about that more.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments related to the superintendent's goals? All right, so take the opportunity to review these so that we can be prepared to discuss this in the next Tuesday's meeting, all right? And then, any conversation that we need to have about the search firm?
Yes,
Yeah,
so Dr. Sean Joseph from HYA is online with us and available to support, but as commissioners may recall, at the last meeting, you all are supposed to be discussing tonight the salary range for the superintendent job posting, as well as receive some recommendations and information from the search firm. And so as I just want to clarify with general counsel that that conversation all needs to happen in executive session. And so the language is there, President Elliott, and board docs as needed to go on motion.
All right, okay. All right then, so any other questions or anything for this evening? If not, let me just ask for a motion to go into executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment or employment of a particular person and to receive the advice of general counsel as permitted by Section 105 of the Open Meetings Law. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Moved by Commissioner Griffin. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Simmons. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so I'm going to say, we're going to say good evening
No,
from the
President Elliott,
dais.
no, I'm sorry, you all will be making a vote in downstairs for the two, excuse me, Resolution 211 and 212, and then the meeting will close.
We will go back into session to vote on resolutions 211 and 212, and then we will say goodnight from downstairs. So I will say it now, good night, if I don't say it, and, but we will vote on those two resolutions as well. Thank you.
All right, 3 seconds. 1.
Good evening. We are back in session, and so we have 2 additional resolutions that we have to vote on. Resolution 111 and resolution, resolution 211 and resolution 212. Is there a motion for resolution 211 and 212? It was moved by Vice President LeBron, seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Any questions or comments related to resolutions 1, 2, 11, and 212? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And so, is there a motion?
Hold on.
For both, I just need clarity.
Just for the one regarding, 211 regarding.
The termination.
Yeah.
It's 2.
Okay. All right. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
So we don't have to go to.
And go back into
executive session.
Motion to go back into executive session. Moved by Commissioner, Vice President LeBron, seconded by Commissioner Simmons. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?